Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to our very last video in the BVM F-16 build series. In this video, we are doing all of our bits and bytes and final wrap-up stuff in this video. So lots to do, lots to accomplish, lots of amazing details in this video, so let's dive back in. All right, so been chasing a gremlin here on the wheel brakes. This is the wheel brake valve. This is the air brake valves in the back. And what was happening is the valve itself was just leaking air when it was activated. So now I've taken these two valves just to confirm, switched them over. They're completely universal because all the air connections all happen in the bus base or the common base in the bottom. So now if I turn the brakes on, they work perfectly. And if I turn the air brakes on, that valve continues to leak, which is the same problem we had when it was in the brake position. So this valve needs to be replaced. That might be one of those things that's, if you own a plane from BVM with this kind of system in it, might be good to have a couple extra of those guys kicking around. So we've put our wingtip rails on and our missiles, those are all one piece. Really easy to attach these things. There's just two bolts on the underside or two fastening screws. So you can see the setup here. This is all done by BVM, so it's ultra simple to attach this. Nice clip on the lights that stays fastened very well. So we've got the wings on. The purpose of getting the wings on is just to, number one, check that everything functions properly. So we've done that. The ailerons or flaperons function properly. Added a little bit of flap in here. You can see the program there. And now we know that the wing servos are good to go. So we're going to pop these wings back off and we're going to do a little bit of detailing on the aileron control linkages. All right, and the other thing we wanted to do here with the wings being on is make sure that the lights work, which they do. All right, so we're just painting our linkages on the wings here gray. It's a little hard to blend this in because you got so many different colors, but we're just going with the generic gray color, and that'll help the linkages to disappear. All right, and we're gonna try something new here with YouTube. So one of the things that YouTube recently offered, like just this week, was you can upload a video and have it available to channel members before the scheduled release date. So as an example, I uploaded tomorrow's video, which is one of the F-16 videos, 2 days ago to YouTube. And if you're a channel member, you are able to watch that video as soon as it's uploaded. You don't have to wait to the release date. So I thought that would be a cool way to offer channel memberships, and that's what we've done. So I'm not sure where the link is or what it is, but I'll put it in the video description down below, and I'll also put it in the first comment. If you do subscribe to be a channel member, you have to pay for it. But I think that was a big payback, or the best thing I could offer to you guys for right now that I know of was to offer early access to my videos. Now, you got to remember that sometimes I upload videos weeks in advance. So right now I've got about 4 videos in the queue that have already been filmed that can be uploaded to YouTube. So you could get videos weeks in advance. So anyways, if you're interested, check it out. Of course, it is paid, a paid service, but I'll put the links down below or also in the first description of the comment section. So now that we're waiting for paint to dry, our chute housing here, the clear coat is all cured. So it is time to finish our chute setup. So if you look in there, hopefully I can capture that for you. We've got our layout there for our plunger system. So the only thing we need to be mindful of is obviously the bottom and the top hook. So our plunger can't be the full dimensions of the opening because our hook is in the way right here. So basically our plunger needs to be kind of that size. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put the housing back on, and I'm gonna take a piece of cardboard and kind of get a rough shape made that we can copy onto wood. So I've done kind of the cardboard cutout there. So we have kind of the basic shape all figured out. So what I'll do now is I'll put the housing on here and see how we need to adjust it. And we just keep taking little bits away. I kind of made it too big, and we can keep taking away until we're happy with the shape. All right, we've got our chute plunger sorted out. This turned out really well. And there we go. So I actually had to tap these threads a little bit because the 3mm nuts wouldn't fit on there. But we've got a nut red Loctited on the back side. We've got our plunger put on there. I put some CA around the opening, and then we put some red Loctite on that side. So the shape of this will keep it in its right spot. So if this happens to turn a little bit, really not going to matter very much. So what I'm going to do to test this now is we'll get this installed. We'll get the cover screwed in place, and then we will be able to fire up the plane and make that chute pop out. All right, it's chute test time. So we've got the plunger set up. We've got some air in the system. It's only about 65 pounds, so we're kind of at that median where it may work, may not. The chute's stuffed in there. The chute's not hooked up, so it's just going to fly out if this works. Let's test it. Magnets are too strong. I used too good of magnets. Okay, so here's a shot of just the plunger in action doing its thing. So we've got to sand those magnets out, or get rid of these magnets and either inset them more or go with a little bit smaller magnet. But here's the plunger doing its thing. Boom. Okay, so if you remember when we did this thing up, we put 2 layers of magnets in there. So what I'm going to try first is I'm going to Dremel out the bottom magnet and see if we can get rid of just the outer magnet, leaving the inner magnet in place, and we'll see how that affects everything. Okay, so we're getting closer on the chute mechanism. Took both of those magnets out down here, and that seems to be probably very close to being the right thing to do here. So what we're going to do now is we need to make a smooth tube for this to work in, and for that we're using a piece of thin poly ply here, and I'm just kind of getting this in place and shaped and stuff, and then we will pull the chute mechanism off again and see about fastening that poly ply in place. All right, so I made my poly ply liner installed in there. I just kind of tacked it in place with CA. And then if you look in the corners there, you can see we used a little bit of spray foam to take up the gaps. So I just used the Great Stuff spray foam, just put a little bit in the corners there, did some from this side, did some from the opening side. Now the important thing is the chute's in there right now, so as that stuff expands, we are going to get a perfect position and shape with the chute stuffed in place. So accessing the servo for the canopy is actually quite simple. There's 3 screws that hold it in place, and it just slides out. So nice and simple here. The reason I'm exposing this, number 1, is just to get an idea of how this is all laid out, and I just want to inspect everything and make sure we're happy with Loctite and securing and all that. So that's why we're taking this apart. Also want to clean the glass on the inside to get rid of the dust. I vacuumed the dust out of this area as well. We'll put a little bit of CA on the back side of those screws, but we've got some nice, looks like everything's fastened nicely. Our latch system here is pretty cool as well for undoing the canopy. All right guys, so we've been struggling a little bit with the afterburner and figured it out. So thank you, David, for this suggestion. So we have a second throttle channel set up on E314. Now those channels are programmable in the Jetty box. So what we did is I put a servo in here, and the servo wasn't doing anything. So what that led me to believe or understand was that channel wasn't programmed properly. So I went into the radio and we changed E314 to a servo output, and now our afterburner light does exactly what it's supposed to. All right, so I did up a little extension here for the GSU for the turbine. So basically if you're, you have the plane all together, you want to plug the GSU in, this is where we're plugging it in right in that location there. Part of the reason we're doing that is it's a little difficult to access on the back of the ECU, so that's why I ran the extension. Cortex, because this cockpit comes out so easy, we're just going to leave the Cortex in a very difficult situation, like a typical Skymaster where you're undoing screws and everything. In that case, I would run an extension for the Cortex, but because this one, the cockpit comes out so easy, we won't worry about that one. All right, try number 2 with the chute. We've got about 75 PSI in there. Let's see what happens. Ha! Super cool. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is we're going to paint the inside of the chute door black to get rid of all the nasty looking stuff. All right, so a little more accomplished on the chute here. We have the actual chute itself fastened to our eye hook. Now, what we like to do when we don't have an option for a removal system or a release system is to use fishing line. So in this case, we've used some fishing line. I wrapped it around, tied a whole bunch of knots, so it's nice and strong. Hopefully if the chute was ever to come out when you don't want it to, that would break off. And then I used some of that rubberized CA to hold it in place. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to get our screws in place, and that will hopefully be the last time we take that chute mechanism off. Got to plug the wire in too. All right, so with our chute installed, we've touched up our screws here with our color match paint, so black and gray on both sides. Now we're going to put our servo arm on our rudder servo, so we're going to power up the plane and install the servo arm. Well, it's time for the ventricle fins. Oh, I'm just kidding to all the grammar police out there. The ventral fins. We haven't put these on yet, but they're pretty easy to install on this plane. There's just 2 screws and those guys there. But we're going to go one step further, and we're going to put some shoe goop on our joints to the fuselage here, so it'll be invisible, it'll help hold it, and good solution. All right, so we're gluing our pilot in. There's a couple different ways that you can put the pilot in. The manual says use Zappa Goop or Velcro. I don't like Velcro because the sun heats it up and it comes off. So I like to use either adhesive or tie wire. And if I'm using like safety wire, I'll put it down like on a loop like that, put it around the guy's waistband, and then just do them up like that. This one though, because we need to sink them down a little bit, this is a 1/4 to 1/4.5 scale pilot. Ideally you want a 5th scale pilot, but he actually looks better in this cockpit. So what I've done is I put some shoe goop on the base of the seat and a little bit on the back, stuck him down there, and we've got him weighted down so he is in the right position. So we're letting that cure. And while we had our goop out, we've gone through and done all of our connections. Now the reason I use goop is because it is removable and it sticks really well. I don't like to use silicone because it doesn't really stick to anything very well. So we've gone through, gooped all of our connections in the front here. Everything. We don't need to do these ones because they've got clips on them, but we've done everything in the black box, in the central box. I just put a bead down the side there. So that is all complete. We'll do the clone receiver when that's actually set up. That's easy to do. So goop on all the connections is done. All right, time for the static wicks. Thank you, Kelly, again for making these guys up with the little yellow tips on them. That's super cool. And also for supplying the drill bit. Very much appreciate it. So we're going to get the static wicks installed. This is a pretty straightforward thing to do. We're going to use a pin vise, mark out our drill bit, and we've got all the locations on all the surfaces to do. So we'll get this done. And those go in all these areas right here. So we just drill that in about 1/4 to 3/8. Install the static wicks, and that's what it's going to look like. Okay, so because we've got these already pre-done and BVM's given us the measurement of 0.84 inches, what I've done here is lined up our manufactured static wicks that Kelly made for us, and those are magnetic. And then do a template or a gauge on my drill bit. So this is exactly how deep we're going to set every single one of them so they all match perfectly. All right, so all of our static wicks are done here. There's 3 on each of the horizontal stabs. See them there. And we've got 3 on the vertical and 3 on the wing. So the next thing we have is all the little scale bits. Now all these scale bits, looks like there's a pretty good layout as far as what BVM has designed for us. So that is really nice to see all those pictures. That's great. So I'm going to get all those things organized and we'll get those installed. Generally when you're installing stuff like this, shoe goop is a great option because it's going to hold it in place. If you ever get a big impact or something, it's going to pop off and not damage anything. So if you use high sol on something like this, it's going to work great. But if you happen to hit this, it may damage the wing. I would rather have this pop off before the surface gets damaged. All right, so our little dude guy pilot is all set up and glued in place. So that just rests in there nicely, which is actually a pretty cool part about this kit. One of the things I really like about it is getting to your stuff. You just simply pop the pilot in and out with the canopy open, of course. So we got all of our scale bits installed here. I'll briefly cover them for you. So we've got this guy on the vertical stab. We've got a little air intake on the chute area installed. That little fin thing right there. We've got one right there. We've got one on the underside just below the nose cone or behind the nose cone. We've got these guys right here. Still have a little bit of shoe goop to clean up. That just rubs off nicely, which is one of the nice things about using the shoe goop, is it just rubs off. And then on our wings, we've got one on that side and a matching one on that side. So really the last thing to do here is to get the canopy reinstalled, back installed. So I'm going to take the guy out and do that all with the pilot and cockpit out. Our programming should be very accurate, the existing programming, because it was all set up previously and it's a this is a generic kind of template that BVM's using for these cockpits. So let's get that back installed. All right, so canopy's all organized here. Let's see how everything works. I adjusted the endpoints just a little bit. Just gonna do it hands off. Now that canopy servo, I mean, it is what it is, but, so that's good. And now we'll close it. And there we go. And then when I shine a flashlight in here and just look at the pins, there is good penetration from the pins going into the canopy or receiver portion. All right, and thank you, David, for the suggestion on this. So basically what David suggested was put a little bit of black paint, you could use Sharpie as well too, on the tips of the pins. So when the canopy closes, if you're seeing black paint in this gap right here, that means the pins aren't in all the way. But if the pins are in all the way, then you're gonna see the aluminum part of the shaft. So great suggestion. All right, and the last thing we need to do is confirm our elevator neutral is what we are looking for. So everything else on the aircraft, like the aileron travel, the rudder travel, that's all stock numbers that came from the previous aircraft. So we're not even gonna mess with those. We're not gonna use the templates because they are what they are or have been when the previous aircraft was flying or the owner was flying the previous aircraft. But I just wanna make sure our elevator neutrals are perfect. So these are pretty awesome little templates here. You cut at the dash line, you line those up with the panel lines, and it tells you exactly your different travels there. So we'll make sure we get those done and adjust it. All right, so here is an interesting thought for you. So I've gone into the CCU unit and we have set the fail-safe up. So we'll do that by having it on PSI, holding down the button. Fail-safe is set to 55. So that is programmed in there. But because we added the servo locks on the doors, the servo locks don't know that the fail-safe is operating. So that's an interesting thing here. So what we do is we go in and do a logic program based on the servo locks are only going to operate above 60 PSI. Below 60 PSI, they automatically open. That's going to use the pressure readout from the compressor to accomplish that stuff. So again, the power of Jetty is phenomenal. So with vSpeak, you get a pressure readout from your telemetry, from your onboard compressor. So that's what we're using to make all of this work. I'll try and run through it fairly quickly here, and then we'll demonstrate that it actually works. So previously we set up a logical switch for the door locks, and that was operating the door locks closing once the gear came up. So what we do to make this work is we go into a telemetry control screen. We're going to go to an open mix here, and we went to MX3, labeled it pressure, enabled it, and this is using the sensor vSpeak bar sensor. It's a switch, and when the pressure is below 4.5 bar, the telemetry control does not work. So that's how we've got it set up. And then what we did was we went back to our logical switch for our door locks, and we have two conditions. So previously this only had control number 1 and condition was just blank. Well, we added the telemetry control that we just made up, which is MX3, and we made it an AND control. So control 1 and control 2 needs to be met for the door locks to actually work. So we'll show you on the plane now. So what happens is we are at full pressure. I'm going to unplug the compressor here. So we're at full pressure on the system, which is going to be 6.1, 6.2 bar. That's what we've got the system set at. And our compressor turns on at 4.8 bar. So this little chart here, this is just because the CCU, the pressure readout on the CCU isn't accurate. So right now the gear is down. What we're going to do is we are going to put the gear up. So our gear is coming up. Doors are going to close. And our door locks, 12 seconds after the gear switch, are operating. So now the door locks are operating. So our pressure in the system has dropped a little bit, hasn't dropped enough to turn the compressor on, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain air from the system, and you'll see that these two check marks are no longer going to work. So we're going to just operate the air brake here, which is going to leak air. And once we get close to our pressure, there we go. So now what's happened is the door locks have opened, but they've opened before the fail-safe has kicked in. So now what I'll do is I'll continue to drain pressure. So this is not accurate. Again, the PSI reading here isn't accurate. So we've got the door locks disengaging at 50 PSI on the CCU, and the fail-safe comes down at 45. So gear switch is still in the up position. We're just relieving pressure. And fail-safe kicks in, gears come down. So that is how you use the magic of Jetty to do amazing things like this. There's really nothing that this radio system can't do. So our neutral is good. We'll do flaps now. There we go, our program's pretty close. So now we'll adjust our travel here as well because we've got too much travel. So we're just going to set this up on both sides and get that solved. All right guys, in last night's live, we were doing the CG check on the plane, and we need the nose weight to come out at 10.08 pounds. So I just did the CG check again on the front nose, and with this battery layout, we came out at 10.10 pounds. So this is perfect for the battery layout, or we need 833 grams in the nose for perfect CG location. Now the actual CG location, I don't know where that comes out to, but that 10.08 pounds came from the owner's previous F-16 that he has. So that's exactly what we match to. Now it's important to note that this weight type scenario only works if you're doing the exact same plane and the exact same size with the exact same landing gear. So let's just say the Rebel up there. If you're doing the Rebel and you use Electron gear, that one's got JP gear, you can't do the nose weight thing because your position is different and everything. So because we've got matching planes here with the F-16 from BVM, that's how we can do it and make it work out perfect. So 833 grams in batteries, or if we do less in batteries, then we need to have our final number be 833 grams to make that plane CG perfect. So we'll throw the rest of the scales on and our wings, and we'll see what the final weight comes in at. All right, so we've got the F-16. This is a big plane. It really is deceiving because the fuselage is so kind of narrow, but when you get this thing all assembled like that, it is a big, big plane. So our final dry weight, UAT full, 53 pounds on the button. That is cool. Well guys, that wraps up the beautiful 1/5 scale F-16 in Venom scheme from BVM Jets. This was a lot of fun to put this aircraft together. Lots of unique and new challenges, and it was a good experience. I'm really looking forward to seeing this fly. The maiden flight on this aircraft is going to have to wait until 2024 when we go to Montana Jets in June. Some of the final thoughts with this aircraft, there was a lot of work involved, more than I thought actually, which was interesting. But we got it done and it's 100% ready to go now at this point. So the final weight, I didn't really know what to expect, but we're about 53 pounds and all is good there. Final time on this aircraft, everybody always asks how much time does it take? I just tallied it up before I'm videoing this clip, and it's exactly 100 hours for this aircraft. Well, in 5 minutes it'll be 100 hours. So it was a good one. I was expecting quite a bit less actually. So that's everything guys. Thank you so much for watching the build series. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to list them down below. Also, you can reach out to me at thelightersideofrc@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out The Lighter Side of RC After Dark. We did a whole bunch of After Darks episodes on this aircraft. What the After Dark is we do a 2-hour live stream here from the shop, and you get to see stuff that we don't generally include on the videos. I mean, it's everything, right? It's 2 hours of live streaming, so you never know what you're gonna get. And we do it about every 2 weeks, usually Saturday nights during the winter here. So that's it guys. Thanks so much for watching the videos, and we'll see ya in the next one.